6 months after I was diagnosed with cancer, my wife left me with our daughters to be with her rich boyfriend. Now years later, he cheated and left them with nothing, and they're begging me to take them back. Hello everyone, my name is Richard, and for the longest time, I thought I had it all. I was married to my wife, Savannah, for 20 years. We built a life together, a home filled with laughter, memories, and love. We had 2 amazing daughters, Ava, who was 17, and Mia, who was 15. My whole world revolved around those 3 women. But life has a cruel way of testing us when we least expect it. One day, after weeks of feeling constantly tired and sick, I went to the doctor. I thought it would be something simple, maybe stress or fatigue. But after a few tests, the doctor looked me in the eye and said something that shattered my world. Stage 3 cancer. Those words echoed in my head. I couldn't breathe. My heart sank. I wasn't thinking about myself, I was thinking about them, my wife, my daughters. How would they manage without me? What would happen to them if I didn't make it? That night, I gathered the courage to tell Savannah. I still remember how she looked at me, her eyes filled with tears before I could even finish my sentence. She threw her arms around me and said, "We'll get through this, Richard. I'm not going anywhere. We'll fight this together." In that moment, I felt a sense of comfort. She was my rock, and I believed her with every part of me. Later, I sat down with my daughters. It was one of the hardest conversations of my life. Ava tried to stay strong, but I could see her fighting back tears. Mia just hugged me tightly, whispering, "You have to fight, Daddy. You promised you'll be there when I graduate." That night, I cried silently, not out of fear, but out of love. I realized I had something worth fighting for, them. The next few weeks were filled with doctor visits, treatments, and endless exhaustion. But every time I felt like giving up, I'd look at my girls, or at Savannah holding my hand, and I'd remind myself why I had to keep fighting. Back then, I truly believed that as long as I had their love and support, I could face anything, even death itself. But what I didn't know was that the real battle wasn't just against cancer. It was against what my illness would reveal about the people I loved the most. After my diagnosis, I tried to stay strong. The treatments were brutal, the constant nausea, the sleepless nights, the pain that felt endless. But every time I opened my eyes, I'd look for Savannah or my daughters and remind myself why I was fighting. At first, they were there, bringing me soup, checking on me, encouraging me to stay positive. But slowly, that love began to fade. It started subtly. Savannah began spending more time outside the house. She'd say she needed some air or had errands to run. When she was home, she always seemed distracted, scrolling on her phone, lost in her thoughts. Then one evening, she sat beside me and said gently, "Richard, I think it would be better if we hired someone to help take care of you. I can't manage everything by myself." Her words stung. I didn't want to admit it, but it felt like she was giving up on me. Still, I didn't argue. I didn't want her to feel trapped. I told myself she was just tired, that it was temporary. So I agreed. That's how Mateo came into my life, a soft-spoken caretaker with kind eyes and an even kinder heart. He treated me with respect, spoke to me like a friend, and always reminded me that I wasn't alone. But as Mateo became a part of my routine, I noticed something else. My family was quietly pulling away. Ava and Mia, my girls, the reason I kept fighting, barely came into my room anymore. When they did, it was just for a minute, a forced smile, a quick, "Hey, Dad, how are you?" before they disappeared again. Dinner time, once filled with laughter and chatter, turned into silence. Savannah would sit with her phone, my daughters with their earbuds, and I'd just sit there, invisible in my own home. I told myself it was fine, they were young, maybe scared, maybe didn't know how to handle seeing me like this. But the truth? It broke me. I needed love and comfort, but what I got instead was distance and coldness. Weeks turned into months. My body grew weaker, my spirit dimmer. The only person who truly talked to me anymore was Mateo. He'd sit beside me after my treatments, talk about random things, movies, his family, even the weather, just to distract me from the pain. And I appreciated him more than words could say. But once he left for the day, the silence would swallow me again. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt hollow, like everyone had emotionally moved on, even though I was still alive. Then one afternoon, about 6 months after my diagnosis, Savannah walked into my room. I immediately knew something was wrong. She looked nervous, guilt all over her face, eyes red like she had been crying for hours. She sat on the edge of my bed, took a deep breath, and said softly, "Richard, I need to tell you something." My heart pounded. I didn't say a word. I could feel what was coming, I just didn't want to hear it. She hesitated for a moment, then continued, "I deserve to be happy, Richard. I really thought I could handle all this, but I can't. Watching you get worse every day, it's too much. I feel trapped, and I don't want to feel that way anymore." She paused, looking down at the floor before whispering the words that shattered what little was left of me. "I've been seeing someone, and I want to leave." I felt like the air was sucked out of the room. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just sat there, staring at the woman I loved for 20 years, realizing she'd already emotionally left me long ago. She leaned forward, hugged me one last time, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Richard. I really tried." And just like that, she walked out. The next morning, her side of the bed was empty. Her closet half cleared. The house quieter than ever. And I sat there, weak, broken, and alone, wondering how a love that once felt unbreakable could disappear so easily when I needed it most. After Savannah left, the silence in the house was almost unbearable. For 20 years, that home had been filled with laughter, movie nights, birthday candles, music from the kitchen while Savannah cooked, and the sound of my girls bickering and giggling in the hallway. Now, there was only the hum of the oxygen machine and the faint ticking of the clock beside my bed. I tried to convince myself that everything would be okay, that at least I still had Ava and Mia. My girls. The reason I kept fighting. Even though their mother had walked out, I believed they would stay by my side. That love, at least, wouldn't fade. But I was wrong. At first, it was subtle, the little things that most people wouldn't notice. Ava stopped sitting with me during dinner. Mia spent more time locked in her room. When I tried to start a conversation, they gave one-word answers or avoided eye contact. The warmth they once had was replaced by something cold, distant, almost resentful. I told myself they were just adjusting, that maybe the situation was too heavy for two young girls to handle. I didn't want to blame them, I was their father, and fathers are supposed to understand. But with every passing day, the distance grew. Then one afternoon, I decided to talk to Ava. She was sitting at the dining table, scrolling through her phone, when I slowly walked in, holding onto the wall for support. I smiled and asked gently, "Sweetheart, have you thought about what you want to do after school? College, maybe? You used to talk about studying architecture." She didn't even look up at first. Then suddenly, she slammed her phone down and snapped, "Dad, can you please stop? I'm tired of this, okay? I can't do this anymore." Her voice shook, not from sadness, but anger. "This house feels like a hospital," she said. "Everywhere I look, it's medicine, machines, pain. I can't breathe here. I can't live like this anymore." Before I could respond, Mia came out of her room. She looked torn, but she nodded in agreement. "We tried, Dad. We really did. Even after Mom left, we stayed, but this is too much. We can't keep sacrificing our lives for this. We want to be happy too. We're moving in with Mom and Jack." For a moment, I just stood there, numb. Their words hit me harder than any diagnosis ever could. I had been fighting cancer, not because I wanted to live, but because I wanted them to have their father. And now, one by one, they were walking away, like I was already gone. 6 months ago, I was a husband, a father, a man with a home full of life. Now, I was just a sick man in a quiet house that no one wanted to call home. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Mateo, my caretaker, had been standing quietly in the corner, and when he saw me struggling to breathe, he came over and placed his hand gently on my shoulder. "Let's get you back to bed, Mr. Richard," he said softly. I just nodded, whispering, "Yeah, take me to my room." That night, I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of emptiness settle deeper into my chest. The next morning, Savannah arrived to take the girls. She didn't even come inside at first, she waited outside in her car while Ava and Mia packed. When they were ready to leave, they came into my room one last time. I tried to find something in their eyes, maybe a flicker of guilt, of hesitation, but all I saw was indifference. Ava spoke first, her voice calm but cold. "There's no hard feelings, Dad. We just need peace." Mia added softly, "Mateo's here to help you anyway, and if you get better, I'll come visit, okay?" That was the same little girl who once held my hand and said, "You have to fight, Daddy, so you can see me graduate." Now she spoke like I was already dead, like I was nothing but a memory. Something inside me broke. My voice cracked as I said, "If you're leaving, then don't expect any money or help from me." Ava shrugged and said coldly, "There's nothing left anyway. You spend it all on your treatments." Then Savannah, standing by the door with her arms crossed, gave me that same bitter smirk and said, "Don't worry, Richard. Jack owns multiple businesses. He'll take care of us just fine." And with that, they walked out. No hug. No goodbye. No looking back. When the door shut behind them, the silence that followed was deafening. It felt like the world had stopped spinning. I broke down completely, the pain in my body, the pain in my heart, everything collided until I could barely breathe. That night, Mateo stayed beside me. He didn't speak much, just listened. He let me talk for hours, about Savannah, about the girls, about how quickly life can fall apart. He told me that sometimes, when life takes everything, it's only making space for something new. I didn't believe him then, but his words stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, with Mateo's care and the support of my sister Maya, I slowly began to heal. Maya visited almost every day. She brought food, helped with bills, talked to doctors, and sometimes just sat beside me, watching old movies. She reminded me that not everyone leaves when things get hard. For the first time in months, I began to feel something small, fragile, but real. Hope. I was still sick. Still broken. But I wasn't alone anymore. After Savannah left, everything felt quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that fills every corner of your house and makes you feel like the walls are breathing loneliness. The divorce went by without drama. No arguments, no fights, no desperate attempts to fix what was already gone. Savannah didn't ask for much, not the house, not the money, not even a single conversation to look back on the life we once shared. She just wanted it over. And honestly, so did I. The whole process barely took a few weeks. She didn't even show up for the final hearing, her lawyer signed on her behalf. It was almost as if she had already accepted I was gone long before cancer could take me. When the papers were finalized, I just sat there, holding that last sheet of paper, staring at the empty space where her name used to mean something. It felt like watching a part of me get erased, cleanly, legally, and without any emotion. After that, 2 full years passed. Not a single call. Not a message. Not even a card on my birthday. Through a mutual friend, I heard they had moved to another state, somewhere near Jack's family. Apparently, they were doing fine, happy, comfortable, maybe even thriving. And I told myself that was enough. If they were happy, that's all that mattered. Meanwhile, I stayed behind, in the same house, now a shadow of what it used to be. Some days, the silence was unbearable. Other days, I just learned to live with it. My body was weak, and the treatment took almost everything out of me. There were nights when even breathing felt like a fight. But through all of it, through every sleepless night and every painful morning, Mateo was there. He wasn't just a caretaker anymore. He was my strength, my listener, and at times, my only real company. He had this calm energy, the kind that didn't need words to comfort you. Sometimes he'd just sit beside me, quietly reading a book or playing soft music, and somehow that made the room feel alive again. He made sure I ate when I didn't feel like it, made sure I walked when I thought I couldn't, and reminded me that even broken people deserve to be cared for. My family, my sister Maya, my parents, and a few cousins, started visiting more often. They saw how Mateo treated me, how patient he was, and slowly they started treating him like one of us. Healing was slow, painfully slow. But it happened. Day by day, I started regaining my strength. First, I could walk to the porch. Then the garden. Then I started cooking again, simple things, but it felt like reclaiming a part of myself. And then, one morning, the doctor called. He told me my scans were clear. I didn't believe it at first. I made him repeat it twice. And when it finally sank in, that I was cancer-free, I just broke down. 2 weeks later, they invited me to the hospital for something special, something I'd seen others do, but never thought I'd live long enough to experience, ringing the bell. When I walked into the hospital hallway that day, I could barely hold back tears. Doctors, nurses, patients, everyone stood there smiling. Mateo was by my side, holding my arm to steady me. The nurse handed me the rope, and for a moment, I froze. My hand was shaking, my eyes blurred with tears. And then, clang. The sound of that bell echoed through the entire corridor, bright and powerful, like thunder in a storm. Everyone clapped. Some cheered. But I just stood there crying, because I had imagined this moment 1,000 times during the darkest nights, when the pain felt unbearable, when I was certain I wouldn't wake up the next morning. I had dreamed of beating this thing, of surviving, of being alive. And that dream had finally come true. But as I looked around that hospital hallway, I couldn't help but notice who wasn't there. No Savannah. No Ava. No Mia. The people I thought I'd be fighting for weren't there to see me win. It hurt, more than I wanted to admit. Even in that moment of triumph, there was an emptiness inside me that no amount of applause could fill. But I wasn't alone. Mateo was right beside me, clapping louder than anyone, tears in his eyes. My sister Maya hugged me tight, my parents cried, and for the first time in a long time, I felt loved, truly loved. That night, we celebrated. We went back home, ordered food, played old songs, and for once, laughter filled the house again. As I sat there, watching everyone smiling and talking, I realized something important. I had lost almost everything I thought mattered, but what I had left was real. Mateo wasn't just my caretaker anymore. He was my family. He had seen me at my worst, at my weakest, and he never walked away. And that meant more than anything Savannah ever promised me. That day, I didn't just survive cancer. I survived betrayal, abandonment, and heartbreak. I rebuilt my life from nothing. And as I looked at Mateo laughing across the table, I knew deep down, sometimes, family isn't the one you're born with. It's the one that chooses to stay when everyone else leaves. After I rang that bell, I truly believed that was the end of my painful story. I thought the worst was behind me, that the people who broke me had finally faded into the past. For the first time in years, I felt free. The doctors called it remission, but to me, it was rebirth. Every breath felt new, every sunrise brighter, and for once, I wasn't afraid to make plans for the future. The first big decision I made was to sell the old house. That place had become more like a museum of memories, walls heavy with laughter, tears, betrayal, and silence. Every corner reminded me of something I didn't want to remember: Savannah's perfume in the hallway, the girls' laughter echoing down the stairs, and the sound of the front door closing the day they left. So, I let it go. I sold it, packed my things, and bought a small, peaceful home on the outskirts of town. It wasn't fancy, just 2 bedrooms, a garden, and sunlight that spilled through every window. But it felt alive. It felt like mine. Mateo helped me move in. He organized everything: the furniture, the plants, even the framed photo of my daughters I still kept, though I didn't know why. Maybe part of me still hoped I'd see them again, just not like this. In that new home, I began to rebuild. I changed my habits, ate healthy, and started walking every morning. Some mornings Mateo joined me, some mornings I walked alone, watching the world wake up slowly. I went back to work, consulting from home, just a few clients at first. But soon enough, business started to pick up. For the first time in years, I wasn't living to survive, I was living with purpose. There were moments of loneliness, yes. There were still nights when I missed the sound of my daughters talking, or Savannah's voice humming in the kitchen. But those memories no longer broke me, they just reminded me of how far I'd come. 2 years passed quietly, peacefully. Until one evening, my phone rang. It was a random number, one I didn't recognize. I was sitting on the porch with a cup of tea, the sunset melting behind the trees. Mateo was inside, preparing dinner. I almost ignored the call, but something in me hesitated, a strange tug of instinct. I picked up. Hello? For a moment, I heard only silence. Then a trembling voice whispered, "Dad?" My heart stopped. That voice? I knew it instantly. It was Ava. I froze, unable to speak. My chest tightened as memories came flooding back, her smile, her laughter, her words that day she walked out of the house. "Dad, it's me," she said again, her voice soft and shaky. "I didn't know if you'd even pick up." I managed to breathe out. "Ava, how are you?" There was a long pause before she answered, "Not good. Things have been hard." Then, hesitantly, she asked, "What happened to the old house?" "The old house." I repeated. "I sold it." A long time ago. I heard her sigh, a small, defeated sound. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, we were hoping to come there. Before I could ask why, another voice joined the line. Mia, I whispered. Hi, Dad, she said, her voice cracking. We need a place to stay, just for a while. Please. The air in my lungs felt heavy. I didn't know what to say. For 2 years, I had imagined what it would feel like if they ever called me again. I thought I'd feel joy, relief, but all I felt was pain. Pain, and confusion. They had chosen to leave me when I was dying. They had watched me crumble, and turned away. Now, after all this time, they were asking for shelter, not reconciliation, not forgiveness, just a roof. I swallowed hard and said quietly, my house is small now. There's no room for guests. There was silence on the other end. Ava tried to say something, but I cut her off gently. I'm sorry. I can't help you. And then, I hung up. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring at the phone in my hand. My fingers were trembling. It felt like ripping open an old wound that had only just healed. Mateo came out to the porch, saw my face, and didn't say a word. He just sat beside me, placed a cup of tea on the table, and let the silence speak for both of us. Finally, after a while, he said softly, some people only reach out when they've lost everything. Maybe that's what's happening now. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew he was right. As the sun disappeared and night fell around us, I realized something. No matter how far you run from the past, life has a way of bringing it back when you least expect it. And something told me, this was only the beginning. After that call, I thought it was over. But I was wrong. Ava and Mia didn't stop. Within days, my phone started ringing again, the same unknown number, again and again. At first, I ignored it. Then the messages started coming. Dad, please talk to us. We need your help. Their voices were desperate, trembling with fear and shame every time I picked up. Then one evening, as the rain poured outside, I received another call. This time, I answered. It was Ava. Her voice was barely recognizable, broken, shaking, almost gasping between sobs. Dad, she said, we're living in a shelter. I froze. She continued, crying harder. Jack, he left. He took everything. We have nowhere to go. Please, we can't live like this. You can't abandon your own daughters. For a few seconds, I couldn't breathe. The same girl who once told me she wanted peace away from me was now begging me to give her a roof. Before I could respond, another voice cut in, Savannah's. Richard, she said, her tone tired, thin, and desperate. I know you're angry. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need help. I didn't ask for anything during the divorce, not a single thing. You owe me that much. Oh, her? The word echoed in my head like poison. After a long pause, I said quietly, I'll meet you. Once. But not at my home. That night, I told Maya about the call. She sighed, looked at me, and said, if it helps you get closure, do it. But, Richard, don't let them manipulate you again. Don't give them money. Don't give them your address. They'll only use you. And she was right. I knew she was. But a part of me needed to see them, just to understand why. The next week, I met them at a small cafe on the edge of town. I got there early, my heart pounding in my chest. When they walked in, I almost didn't recognize them. Ava and Mia, my once bright, confident girls, looked exhausted, pale, and fragile. Their hair was messy, their clothes wrinkled. And Savannah, she looked like a shadow of the woman I once knew, thinner, older, her eyes dull and defeated. When Mia saw me, she ran straight toward me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Dad, she cried, trying to hug me. Savannah and Ava followed, reaching out like they used to, as if time could erase everything. But this time, I stepped back. Mia froze, her face breaking. Dad, please don't do that, she whispered. I looked at her, my voice quiet but firm. I needed that hug when I was dying, Mia. Not now. They went silent. We sat down. Savannah was the first to speak. We just need a place to live, she said. We can start over, together. Please. I looked at her calmly. What happened to your perfect, rich life with your new man? For a moment, she didn't answer. Then she sighed. Jack cheated on me, with a younger girl. He took everything, Richard. The house, the savings, everything. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Not a polite laugh, a deep, bitter one that came from years of pain. Savannah looked at me, stunned. I said, so he did to you, exactly what you did to me. You cheated on your husband while he was fighting for his life. Karma really doesn't waste time, does it? She looked away, embarrassed, her voice small. I know I made mistakes. But we're your family. We need you now. I have nothing. The girls have nothing. Ava leaned forward, her eyes red. Dad, please. I know you're angry, but you can't abandon us. We're your daughters. I can't wait to live together again. Please. I smiled, just a small, cold smile, and said, I didn't come here to take you home. I came here to tell you I want nothing to do with you. Savannah's face twisted with anger. You can't do that. We're homeless. You're going to leave your own children to rot in the street? Mia broke down, sobbing. Dad, please. I don't want to go back to that shelter. I can't. But I had heard enough. I looked at them all, these faces that once meant everything, and said, quietly but clearly, you made your choice 4 years ago. When you walked away while I was fighting to stay alive. You don't get to walk back into my life just because things didn't work out for you. Then I turned to Ava. Do you remember the day you left? I told you not to expect anything from me again. I still stand by that. Finally, I looked at Savannah. Go find another rich man, Savannah. That's what you're good at. But you and your daughters lost me the day you walked out that door. Savannah's face hardened. You think you can just walk away from this? I'll go to court. You think I don't know about the inheritance you got from your grandfather after the divorce? I deserve half of that. I stood up slowly, pushed my chair back, and said, "Good luck with that." Then I turned and walked toward the door. "Dad. Please." Ava shouted, running after me. Both girls caught up, grabbing me from behind, hugging me tightly. "Please don't leave us," Mia cried. I didn't understand back then. I was just a kid. I didn't know what was right or wrong. "Please, give us another chance." I looked at them, at their faces streaked with tears. And for a moment, I almost saw the little girls they used to be, the ones who used to kiss my cheek before school, who would run into my arms after a long day. But those girls were gone. The ones holding me now were strangers. Teenagers who had abandoned me when I needed them the most. And they weren't here because they missed me, they were here because they had nowhere else to go. I gently pushed them away and said softly, "Would you have come back if your stepdad hadn't left you? Why didn't you call even once in these 4 years to ask how I was? Was it that easy to erase me?" They didn't answer. They just cried. And I walked away. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel broken. I just felt done. After that meeting at the cafe, I truly believed it was over. I thought that was the last time I'd ever see them, that maybe, after hearing the truth, they'd finally move on. But I was wrong. A few days later, my phone rang again. This time, it was my mother. Her voice was shaking. "Richard," she said, "you need to come to the house. It's Savannah and the girls." My heart dropped. "What do you mean?" "They showed up here an hour ago, asking for your address," she said. "When we refused to tell them, they started yelling, saying we turned you against them." I could hear shouting in the background, glass breaking, my father trying to calm them down. Then the line went dead. By the time I got there, it was chaos. The front yard was a mess, flower pots shattered, garden furniture overturned. My mother was standing by the porch, crying, while my father argued with Savannah, who was screaming like a woman possessed. Ava and Mia stood beside her, both crying, but neither doing anything to stop her. "Where is he, huh?" Savannah screamed, pointing her finger at my parents. "Tell me where Richard is. He can't hide forever." When my father tried to make her leave, she grabbed one of the flower vases and threw it against the wall. The neighbors came out to watch. Some tried to step in, others just stood there in shock. It wasn't until one of them called 911 that Savannah finally stopped. Within minutes, police cars pulled up. The officers separated everyone, took statements, and after hearing what happened, escorted Savannah and the girls away. I stood there, holding my mother, who couldn't stop shaking. That night, something in me broke again, not from sadness this time, but from disbelief that the same people who once called me family were now destroying the only family I had left. The next day, I went straight to my lawyer. We filed a restraining order against Savannah, Ava, and Mia, to protect not just me, but also my parents. I thought that would be the end of it. But a few weeks later, I received a notice from the court. It was a petition for divorce settlement, from Savannah. When I showed the paper to my lawyer, he couldn't help but laugh. "Richard," he said, shaking his head, "this is pathetic. The divorce was finalized 5 years ago. She's got no ground to stand on. Let her embarrass herself in court." Still, I showed up on the day of the hearing, not because I had to, but because I wanted to see just how far she'd fallen. Savannah looked nothing like the woman I once loved. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes too loose, her hands trembling. Ava and Mia sat behind her, quiet and pale. As soon as the hearing began, Savannah stood up, her voice cracking with emotion. "Your Honor," she said, "my husband abandoned me and our daughters. He's living comfortably with another man while we're struggling to survive. I didn't take anything in the divorce, and now I want my fair share." She pointed straight at Mateo, who was sitting quietly behind me. "That's him," she said bitterly. "He's the reason Richard turned his back on his family." I could see Mateo lower his head, trying to stay calm. My lawyer stood up, adjusting his glasses. "Your Honor, the opposing party's claims are baseless. Mrs. Parker didn't receive nothing, she refused to participate in the divorce at all. She ignored multiple court notices, refused mediation, and voluntarily forfeited her claim to any assets." He then handed over a stack of documents, copies of court records, signed waivers, everything. "And," my lawyer continued, "this divorce was finalized over 5 years ago. There is no legal basis for any claim now. Furthermore, both daughters are adults, over 18, meaning Mr. Parker has no financial obligation toward them." Savannah's face turned pale. "That's not fair," she screamed. "He left us to die. He's living happily while we have nothing." My lawyer remained calm. "With respect, Your Honor, she left him while he was fighting for his life. We have medical records, witness statements, and a signed affidavit confirming her abandonment." The courtroom was silent. Even the judge looked exhausted by her desperation. Savannah started crying, not quietly, but violently. "Please," she shouted. "I have nowhere to go. He can't just walk away like this." But it was too late. Everyone, even her own daughters, looked down, avoiding eye contact. Deep down, they all knew the truth. When the judge finally spoke, her voice was firm but sympathetic. "Mrs. Parker, your motion is denied. Furthermore, the restraining order filed against you and your daughters remains in effect. You are not to contact Mr. Parker or his family again." That was it. It was over. But Savannah didn't take it quietly. She screamed, sobbed, and begged the judge to reconsider. "Please, Your Honor, I have nothing left. I'll die out there," she wailed, collapsing to the floor. The officers had to escort her out as she kept shouting, "You'll regret this, Richard. You'll regret everything." Ava cried silently, clutching her mother's hand, while Mia just stared at me, her face blank, like she couldn't decide whether to hate me or hate herself. And I just sat there. Silent. Cold. Numb. Because there was nothing left to say. 5 years ago, they made their choice, and this was the price of it. As I walked out of the courtroom, Matteo put a hand on my shoulder. You did what you had to do, he said quietly. I looked at him and nodded. I know, I whispered. It hurts to realize that sometimes, the people you die for wouldn't even fight for you to live. Outside, the wind was calm. The sky was bright. And for the first time in years, I felt truly free. It's been 6 months since that day in court, 6 months since I last saw Savannah or my daughters. And to be honest, life has finally started to feel peaceful again. For the first time in years, my mornings are quiet. I wake up to the sound of birds outside my window, sunlight spilling across my new home, the one I built for myself, not for anyone else. The walls don't echo with shouting or pain anymore. They carry laughter, warmth, and calm. Matteo's been by my side through it all. He didn't just help me survive cancer, he helped me live again. He taught me that love doesn't have to be loud or dramatic, sometimes it's in the small things, morning coffee shared in silence, late night walks, the way he still looks at me like I'm not broken. My parents are doing better too. After everything Savannah did, I was afraid it would leave a scar, but they've healed. Sundays are our family days now. Matteo cooks, my mother complains that he uses too much salt, my father pretends not to like the food, but always finishes his plate. It's become our little ritual, and I cherish it. Work's been good. Better than I expected, actually. I started consulting again, slowly rebuilding what I lost during those dark years. There's something satisfying about creating stability with your own hands, not because you need to prove anything, but because you can. Every now and then, though, when the house gets too quiet, I find myself thinking of Ava and Mia. I wonder if they're okay. I wonder if they ever think of me, not with anger, not with shame, but maybe with a bit of understanding. But I don't let those thoughts stay for long. I've learned that some wounds aren't meant to reopen. Some people, no matter how much you love them, are better left in your past. I don't hate them, not anymore. Hate only drains you. I've already lost enough years to pain, I'm not giving it any more. I'm living now, truly living. Some nights, Matteo and I sit outside on the porch, sipping tea under the stars. He always smiles at me and says, "You made it, Richard." And every time, I smile back, because I know he's right. After years of chaos, loss, and heartbreak, I finally made it to peace. It's been 6 months since Savannah and the girls last tried to reach out. I don't know where they are, and honestly, I don't want to. I just hope they've learned something, that they've found their own way to heal without destroying others in the process. Because I've rebuilt my peace, my life, and my heart, and I'll protect it this time, no matter what. I've learned that peace isn't something you find. It's something you choose. And this time, I'm choosing me.